Everyone back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. It's another week, another video, and what we're doing today is this has been requested by quite a few people, namely Carlton Folk Hero Paul Barbaza actually DM'd me the other week and asked about this. So we're going to look at the historical accuracy of the 8 really, and see if we can deduce when we look at modern history. So we're going from 2000 before and post. Because pre-2000, the game was totally different, and you actually see massive statistical abnormalities as sports science and things take over. So before we get into that, some housekeeping. Make sure you are liked. Make sure you subscribe. We are smashing them out. We're well on our way to 10k, so I can't thank you enough for that. We are doing a giveaway as well, $100 prepaid Visa gift card for the members. So there is a link if you want to become a membership. I do believe the cheapest one's like $3. It does help the channel out. It lets us do all these little singing and dancing and mod. And we've got loads of plans this year. And we're trying to give back to the community. So if you can help us do that, that would be grouse. Draw for that is the 4th of February. So the cutoff will be midnight on the 4th. So we've got a fresh slate when we do the members only live. We're just going to kick back and chat some rubbish as usual. So let's get into it, right? So what we've done is we've looked at the 8 and we've gone and seen historically what happens to the 8 year on year from the year 2000. So the turn of the millennia, which makes me sound really old because I remember when it switched over. So let's have a wee look-see. So obviously at first place at the moment is Geelong. Now historically they have a 91% chance of remaking the 8, which probably, unless you live in a cave in Mozambique, it's not a shock to you, is it? So the stats are saying Geelong will definitely be there, which I don't think anyone would argue anyway. I think even if you get out of the data realms and you just use logic, you'd say Geelong are definitely a lock for the 8. And that is historically across the board. Genuinely, that happens. It's happened twice, incidentally, though, that the top place side in the AFL hasn't made the 8 the year after, which is quite an interesting little gambit. It happened in 2016. It happened in 2018. So it has happened in recent memory, as it were. But genuinely speaking, like we say, that is a stone wall. So only 9% of the time has the first side ever missed the 8. Second is Melbourne. Now this is a really interesting one. Like we say there, you can see that they have got a high likelihood, 74% chance. Only the 6 times it's missed the 8 in recent memory, which isn't a surprise. Incidentally, the year just gone, Port Adelaide was second. They missed the 8. But after that, you're going back to 2013. Adelaide, again, they feature quite a lot in this video. Hawthorn in 09, they missed the 8. Collingwood, 04. Brisbane, 05. You know, the end of their big era, probably. It's genuinely here. This is only a problem genuinely when a team has overperformed and it's usually reaching the end, or it's a shock into the 8, a shock inclusion in the 8, and then the next year they fall, and that is genuinely it. So what you're looking for here is generally a wily old end of dynasty team, and it suddenly falls off the cliff, or you're looking at a fresh thing. So with Melbourne, they're kind of in the middle of their era, aren't they? They've won one. Do you know what I mean? Bit disappointing last year, but you'd say they're still in, and historically this is a dangerous point where Melbourne are. We'll come at that to the later, but historically in the last 22 years, they're a team you want to be concerned about. When you want to be concerned about. Another team with identical stats, 74% chance of making the 8. Sydney Swans were 3rd this year. And 3rd is a really exciting position because this is a team that genuinely, you know, are an exciting team. Teams that have missed it, again, an end of an era. Hawthorn missed it from 3rd. Do you know what I mean? This is a very important one. Do you know what I mean? Port Adelaide, they missed it in 08. It's one of them finicky positions. Melbourne have got there as well at the turn of the century. It's one of them finicky eras and areas of it. So Sydney, with their profile of their list, they should be well in the 8 as well. That would be a higher. When you look at their profile, that's probably in real money an 85 and 88%. So another team to watch, and they're the 2 jumpers. 2 and 3 are genuinely the jumpers in it. This is really interesting, right? And I checked the stats time and time again. 4th has a staggering 83% chance. So it's second from 91st. And I hate to say it, these are usually the high flyers, especially when they fit Collingwood's mould of coming from nowhere, right? It's an interesting one. Hawthorn are a side that's missed the 8, though, the year after 2019, which was that kind of like transitional year, the phase there. Doggies in 2011 missed it from here. It's always a real interesting one. Richmond in 02. It's a real interesting little point here. Now, because when you look at their profile, a lot of people say it's an old list, but then you look, they've got a lot of players they haven't played that have got very good VFL form that are combined. New coach, everything is working in their favour. So Collingwood are going to be one of them teams that, even though that's an 83% chance, it can go either way in the fall, whether they rise or they drop. So it's going to be interesting how they integrate their new kids in there, because they will probably start, at some point they've got to go start younger. It's going to be an interesting one, this one. But Collingwood in a real good chance, in a real good position, as it were, to launch an attack. Fifth, 43% chance. Now, this is an interesting one. We'll come on to why fifth is interesting. 43 dramatically slides. Now, this is littered historically with young teams, with teams that just never make the grade. Do you know what I mean? Teams that just never quite do it. North Melbourne have featured quite a few times. Do you know what I mean? Early doors in the turn of the century. Geelong have featured there. Richmond in 16. Do you know what I mean? One of them tales have been very disappointing if you remember that 2016 season, but then also they went on and won it the next season, but there were people wanted everyone sacked. Port have featured a few times, do you know what I mean? The Demons obviously famously featured. So this is one where it can, the next year you become the flag winners, do you know what I mean? And you turn it on. But it also has historical that this is like, you know, the Bermuda Triangle of 8 positions. So Fremantle I want to watch. And what I want you to know is their ability to score is a big thing. And that kind of correlates with the anomaly of the other teams that we're talking about. A 43% chance is sixth, currently held by Brisbane. Again, this is another position, an auto position. It is an auto position. GWS famously bombed out in 2020. Do you know what I mean? Famously, do you know what I mean? This is one of them areas. Again, you worry about Sydney, Brisbane, 09 and 10, St Kilda in 12, Fremantle in 11. Do you know what I mean? This has got like historical of teams that have had bad finals and are totally out of it. So Brisbane are one to watch as well. Do I think it'll happen? I don't know. Bit disjointed with probably their off-season turmoil with Fagan, but they have recruited well. So they're not kind of a concern because that's something that stats doesn't take into account. A 57% chance of playing finals is Richmond. Now, 7th and 8th are kind of, surprisingly, that they aren't as scary as some people make out. But Richmond fit the bill of a team that is, again, either going to rise or fall. And they're in that little moment. Now, it's interesting because Richmond, looking back historically, not many teams have done what Richmond done. They have gone really hard in recruitment and tried to break the walls down. I'm still on the fence of how that will work out. Personally, I'm not too sure. I don't personally like it. Taranto and Hopper, though, absolute phenomenal acquisitions. But you are really forcing the door open. And it is going to be one of them ones that's a wait and see for me to see it. And then Doggies, 52. Now, this is a worrying position for them, and especially when it's the Doggies. They've had a lot of turmoil after this position. Genuinely, we find teams that stabilise in the 8 when they do slip into the 8th are teams that have created continuity. Now, losing Dunkley and stuff, I know it's kind of overzealous, but they have lost some very key components that statistically make them a good side. Dunkley is very underrated for his output, so this is going to be interesting. But what does this mean? What does this mean for the 8? Statistically speaking, it's 2.9 sides drop out year on year. That's 3 if you round it up. You found as well that in recent eras, in the last year, in the last, say, 5 years, it has been dead on 3. Right? So do you know what I mean? And this, we went back a bit further for when we've had the 8. It kind of correlates. It kind of correlates when you've had the finals, that it's like it jumps to 2 when it was a bit less. But it is a very interesting thing. Now, what are the danger positions historically? right? The danger positions historically are very interesting, I find. And you'll find 5th and 6th and 8th are the dangerous positions. And that's in order of priority. We find that genuinely a side that is mid-table proper dives. Now, that kind of backs up because I've said that I've got question marks on Freo. I've been quite open of that. And that's no hate. Do you know what I mean? It's no hate. So that would say that Brisbane and Fremantle are the two teams that you want to be wary of. You want to be wary of if you are gambling or if you want to do. So what does the 8 look like statistically? Let's have a look. So in first, statistically, if we go through the history since 2000, you'd say Geelong are still going to retain first. Now, has that happened a lot of times? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't often work that way. Do you know what I mean? You've got Port who did it 3 times in a row from 02 to 04. Do you know what I mean? Collingwood 10, 11, Hawthorn 12, 13. It does generally happen. And when you've got the statistical output that these guys have had, it hasn't happened since 2013. I suspect it happens again, though. I suspect Geelong go again. I think they've recruited very well. I think what they've recruited as well is to allow for the rotation. And that's something that Hawthorn did spectacularly well in that point of time. Second is Sydney. Sydney are in that wonderful age bracket now where I actually think they'll rise. And even though they had a horrible final, I think that they have done enough to prove to me that they are resilient. Very experienced coach, which I think is going to be important because he's played finals, he's been there and done it. That helps. That does help stabilise in a historical data sense. A coach, some players that have been there and done it as well and been on either end of it, they get it. So I think they'll be fine. Melbourne, I think, will solidify. Brisbane, I think they'll solidify. Now, these are the additions. We've gone with 3. I personally think it's 2. I personally think it's Port and Carlton. And I think Fremantle and the Dogs will drop out. That's my gut. But 5th is Port, one of the new guys. Now, you look at their statistics, very strong, recruited fairly well. I think they'll surprise. And Port are one of them teams that I'm either or on. Like, Port and Adelaide are the 2 sides that I'm either or on. I'm either thinking they're tanking and going to be bad. I don't mean deliberately tanking, just the results will be bad. Or they'll fly. But I do, looking at Port's fixture list, I'm starting to come round to I think that they'll fly. Pies will solidify. I think Pies will solidify. I think historical data is saying that even though they're in a safe position, genuinely it is a transformative year. Carlton in at 7. Carlton obviously in that. So the teams that do genuinely rise is 11th is the big one, Port Adelaide. 9th is Carlton. And then it's usually a hair's breadth will separate 13 and 14, which is Adelaide. And Adelaide with a young list, a very offensive game plan, with some key pillars coming back. Rory Sloane is very important to that system. That is the historical 8. So hopefully that answers your question. It was a real fun video to do. I am working on it. It's taking a lot of time comparing injury lists. So that is coming probably in the next week. That's 2 weeks. You have no idea how hard that is because data-wise, it's not correlated very well. So it's a lot of work, but that will be coming in. I've got a few guest appearances coming up, so stay tuned. Make sure you follow the socials. Pommy in Oz. All major socials. Your Facebook, Insta, or the gram as the kids call it. TikTok, we're going to get a bit more active on that. And obviously Twitter. Stay safe. Make sure that you enter that draw if you want to by becoming a member. No obligation. But until next time, Pom out.